Hello and welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport. Thought we'd go with Thursday morning. James, how are you?
All good, thanks. Two really interesting midweek Champions League nights just taking place. So, lots to discuss. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Let's crack on. Before we touch on Champions League, let's just roll back to Monday evening, Premier League. Manchester United got a massive win, 1-0 away at Everton. Sesko turning into a super sub. Massive win for United in terms of their Champions League aspirations. I'm not sure they played all that well, to be honest. But they often say a sign of a good team is when you can grind out results, and that was definitely what this was.
One, they're not a good team, but yes, it is a good result. The game kind of went as we kind of predicted, and I'm not blowing our own trumpet, but it was very bad for 60, 65 minutes when showed that both teams, in my view, hadn't played for 2 weeks and they'd almost got out of rhythm. And then Sesko came on for Ahmad, and he gives them a focal point. You've talked about it a lot. Confidence is huge in this sport and in a lot of sports, and he's full of confidence, as shown by his last couple of goals. Obviously, the equaliser at West Ham as well. Yeah, and it's a massive 3 points for them, especially after the weekend where Liverpool got the win. Chelsea obviously drew. So they're back up to fourth, and Michael Carrick's probably going to get the full-time job if we're lucky.
We can but hope. I think what's interesting about it is that I think there's really clear patterns of play with both teams. You know, in terms of United, if you keep them in front of you and don't let them in behind, and it was ironic that, but not massively surprising that the goal actually came from the break. If you can keep United in front of you, they really struggle to create much and break you down as a team. And Everton just you do see it on occasion where, I mean, can we just make a special mention for Tarkowski? His pace.
Or lack of.
Or lack of. But, I mean, that's one problem when you have 3 or 4 centre-backs is you're not going to have those fast sort of covering defenders. But against United, if you can keep them in front of you, you can have quite a bit of success against them, I think. And for Everton, is that they're always comfortable under Moyes being slightly more defensive and relying on an NDA or Dewsbury Hall trying to create some magic. I mean, one thing that was interesting was all the shenanigans with corners. I mean, we have touched on this so many times, but I think we have to go back a little bit and look at how we've got to this situation, because I haven't seen many situations where the ridiculousness of it is highlighted better than it was in that game, where you probably had 12, 14 players in the 6-yard box at times. It was absurd. But all of it stems from an inability of the referees to get a grip when Arsenal were doing this type of stuff earlier in the year. If they'd clamped down on it properly then, we wouldn't have got to this situation. They're now almost scared to make decisions. The amount of fouling going on, particularly towards the keepers, it's just ridiculous. What sport are we even watching? It's not NFL where you're blocking players, and I don't know. They've got massive problems, and maybe it needs a World Cup to highlight it. We'll see what happens in the World Cup with regard to it. But there will certainly be teams in that World Cup who will look to cause chaos. Now, maybe the referees will have a directive that they can't be doing this sort of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, before coming on to the point, the United keeper was brilliant, actually. Come out, and he's 6'4", so he can come out and he dominated the areas per se. But yeah, there is a massive issue. One rule needs to be changed, is that once we talked about it, is that you can't be having players blocking players, holding on to players before the balls come in. And players aren't even looking at the ball, they're just looking at the man. And anywhere else on the field, that's a clear foul, obstruction. But in the penalty box, it seems to be you're allowed to do essentially what you want. You can push people, you can pull people, and because the referees and whoever in charge, PG Madrid, have basically said, if both players are doing it, you let it go. Well, so where's that allowed in the rule book? It's got to be stopped. I don't know the answer to it. I did see a former referee in the paper saying his idea would be you only allowed a maximum amount of certain players in the penalty box or in the 6-yard box. Yet to be convinced about that argument. I'm not actually sure what should be
I sort
done.
of suggested having a maximum of 3. You're allowed a maximum of 3 in the 6-yard box, which again potentially is interesting. They have to do something. I'd almost, you could almost go slightly further and say you're not allowed anyone in the 6-yard box when the corner's taken, apart from like defenders can be in there, but not the attackers. I mean, you have to clamp this nonsense out, and they've done a really poor job. Something's going to have to change, and that's the one worry I'd have for Arsenal is if changes come, so maybe not this season, but certainly next. If changes come and it reduces the impact of set pieces, that impacts a team like Arsenal more than anyone else because they're so reliant on them.
Have to change the way they play. But yeah, I still haven't worked out what to do. It's just ruining the sport as a spectacle. And it's just complete nonsense. Every time there's a corner, always in swinging corners now. Drop it in 6-yard box and just hope and cause some chaos. And you either get a free kick for nothing, or the keeper makes a mistake, or there's a bundle in the goal and you score a goal. It just, as you say, needs cleaning up. I'm not sure what the idea of how to fix it, but someone clever needs to have a think about it.
Is when you watch your team then take 4 short corners in a row.
Yeah.
But big win for United. Tricky game potentially for them on Sunday. They have Crystal Palace, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. So that's the Premier League. Championship had a full set of matches midweek. Big win for Coventry against Sheffield United. They were 1-0 down, came back to win 2-1. They're looking to be in great shape now to get one of those automatic promotion places.
Yeah, I think they're 5 points clear of Middlesbrough now. So yeah, 2-1 with victories last night at Sheffield United is a big result for them. Millwall beat Birmingham 3-0 last night, so they bounced back from their poor result at home to Portsmouth.
Sad times, James. Sad times.
Sad times indeed, yeah. So yeah, Coventry on 68 and Borough on 63 at the moment. There is 11-12 games left of that season, of that championship season.
So that relegation battle is getting interesting. So Leicester had a big draw against Middlesbrough. West Brom, who are really competing with Leicester for the last relegation spot, they sacked their manager on Wednesday after Eric Ramsey, after just 44 days after that 1-1 draw with Charlton. A little bit unlucky. They look like they absolutely battered them, to be honest. But we've seen with Premier League with Dyche when he went after that 0-0 draw with Wolves when they battered them. So it is a results business.
He beat the record of Ange, didn't he? So he's not the least thing there. So at the bottom of the table, obviously you've got Sheffield Wednesday are relegated. They're -7 points. Oxford on 29, Leicester 34, West Brom 35, and Blackburn, who lost as well, they're on 38. So there's 3 big teams. It looks like one of those big teams will be relegated to League One for next season. Other championship news, do you see that Norwich 16-year-old AJ Tavares went to Barcelona? He's 16, he's made a couple of appearances for Norwich. So he's gone to join Barcelona, initially to go and join their under-19 team. But yeah, he's gone to Barcelona, undisclosed fee, probably going to be decided tribunal. But yeah, an interesting one why he's gone there. Obviously, he's supremely talented. I think a few Premier League teams were looking at him as well. But he has gone there. FIFA have allowed him to go there out of the transfer window as well. So he has moved to Barcelona.
I mean, we touched on it when we talked about Liverpool stealing the likes of Harvey Elliott and young Rio. These clubs never get compensated correctly. I just feel sorry for Norwich. A kid, who knows how good he'll be, could be an absolute superstar. And, the terms of that deal will not be favourable for Norwich.
Not at all. They won't get the money that they probably deserve if he stayed there for the next couple of years and made a name for himself as a 16, 17-year-old in Championship.
Okay, let's go on to Champions League. Tuesday evening, we had 4 matches. We had Atletico Madrid beating Bruges, and I'll keep calling it Bruges. I know it's Brugge. It'll always be Bruges. Beat them 4-1 to go through. Leverkusen 0-0 with Olympiacos. They went through 2-0 on aggregate. The big one was Inter lost 2-1 to Bodø Glimt and lost 5-2 on aggregate. And Newcastle beat Karabag 3-2, 9-3 on aggregate. Let's start with Newcastle. I mean, when you have a 6-1 lead heading into the home leg of a Champions League game against a team who's clearly a very poor team, I've mentioned this before, but this is such a big bugbear of mine, is why on this planet is Tonali playing 90 minutes in a game where you have a 6-1 cushion from the first leg, right? At times this year, he's been the only fit midfielder. Bruno's out for however long. Joel Linton's only just come back from injury. Ramsey and Willock are both injury-prone midfielders at the best of times. Your one reliable midfielder, who, by the way, every time I see Newcastle recently, he looks like he's going down with a little niggle of some description. Clearly nothing serious, but why? James, explain to me why you would play Tonali for 90 minutes in a game that doesn't matter. Look at Newcastle's fixture list coming up. It's brutal. Explain, please. Someone give me one logical reason.
I can't. Newcastle played 45 games already this season with another possible 15 or something left to go because they're still in the FA Cup as well. It's absolute nonsense. Eddie Howe came out and said I needed to give the fans first-team players.
Absolute shit.
And then all the other pundits go, no, it's great to see Newcastle taking this game seriously. The game and tie was over. It meant nothing. It was just ridiculous. And to play him for 95 minutes, not 90. What are you doing? I just don't get it. When they
let's take it on a little bit further. Why are you bringing
Gordon
Hall on after 53 minutes? Why are you bringing Anthony Gordon on after 54 minutes? And don't say, squad. They could have given the young lad Shahar, who, yes, he is a right back. He didn't come on until the 87th minute. He was talked about. I was looking at the preview of this game, and it looked like there was a good chance he could have started ahead of Trippier. Right? I realise he's not necessarily a left back. He might be a right back, but why would you bring Hall on? You know, you had others. Yes, I had 3 keepers on the bench, which is never ideal. But they had a young lad, Neve, right? Why wouldn't you bring him on instead of like a Gordon? And also, why wouldn't you bring a Langer on instead of the likes of Gordon and Visser? I don't know. I just do not get it. It just drives me crazy. I'm not going to say I hope Newcastle players get injured, but if Tonali goes down with a fatigue injury in the next week or two, that is on Eddie Howe. There's no, we were unlucky or any of this nonsense. That is on them just chronically mismanaging that squad.
Rudy, there's just no sense to it. Football teams and football managers and coaches don't think to the future, and they've got to start realising it. Because this is where they go down. And when you have a muscle fatigue injury, it's not a week here or there. It's normally a 4-6 week injury because you're doing your hamstring or you're putting a groin. It's not like, so it's a big, at this stage of the season as well, when it makes a huge difference.
I'll never understand it. Anyway, Newcastle went through easily enough. Wasn't a great performance. They got the win. I guess the St James's crowd were entertained. Eddie ticked all the boxes he needed to. I'm just going back to it quickly because it does annoy me that much. It's not like you get extra £1 million. It's not like, the group stages in the Champions League where that week 8 where you have like an extra £1 million on offer if you win that particular, or a couple of million if you win that actual match. So I don't know. The St James's faithful wouldn't care if they're watching some of their young kids play.
Yeah, you get 2.1 million euro if you win a group stage match. I'm not sure how much you get for these playoff games. And
Well, no, but
in
you
fact,
don't get individual amounts for each game. You get
no,
an amount for going through to the next round, and it's
you do.
decent
Sorry,
money.
you do in the league stage. You get 2.1 million euros for a win.
No, I
And
know. But what I'm saying is, once you get to knockout stages, it doesn't. You're not getting per
no,
result.
you don't
You
get
get
any
it
money.
for the
No,
overall tie. Is you just
no,
get 10 million or whatever it is for going through to the next stage.
correct.
So I can understand in the group stages a little bit more. If you get an extra 2 million for winning this game, you can understand why you might put out a slightly stronger team, but not when literally if you can't defend a 5 goal. Honestly, if they'd lost 3-0 and rested all their starters, that would have been a perfect outcome.
Yeah. Moving
Anyway,
on.
let's go. The big result of the night was Inter, and a very limp exit to Bodø Glimt. I mean, it's tough to say much more than hats off to Bodø Glimt. I mean, they just keep beating. They just keep winning. I don't know what else to say.
He's been proper side as well. So said it. They had to win the last two games in the group stages, which they battered Man City at home. Went to Atletico Madrid, beat them, beat Inter at home, and beat them away. And watched the game. They were clever. They sat back, they invited Inter onto them, tried to counter-attack them. Yeah, they got a couple of lucky away escapes away from Inter. Inter didn't take their chances, but that's what happened, kind of thing. You're away and you're up against a big side. They went up the other end, scored. Thanks so much. Scored again, 2-0 up, tie over. Happy days. And it's a fantastic achievement considering their season finished in November. The league season doesn't start to the 14th of March as well, to in between the next last 16 games. So they've only played a couple of friendlies and these 4 games in 4 months. It's remarkable achievement.
Well, but is that part of the reason for the success? Is they are so fresh, they're so hungry, they're so well drilled in terms of game plan. They know what they want to do.
It must be a reason, because they can keep on running and running and running. And they're not playing, obviously, the Saturday as well. They've got no stress with that. The players can recover. You can go back home. You don't have to travel anywhere. You can stay in your own home, own beds, own pillows, etc. Rest up. And then, yeah, as you said, there's no real superstars there. They all know their roles, as you say. They're all in it together. They've got a great team spirit. And you'd fancy them to be anyone at the moment. You really would. Why wouldn't you? They're organised. Very well organised.
So I was reading quite an interesting article. I think it was from Ted Knutson or certainly his group. They were talking about Bodø Glimt players and whether they would come on the radar of the bigger European teams. And what he was saying was that's happened previously, and the players went abroad and they flopped. And a lot of this sort of data and stats on them, really the sort of takeaway is that the Norwegian league, domestic league, is really poor. So they end up with players who flag a much higher on the sort of data and stats than they probably should do. And a lot of them came back to Bodø Glimt and are doing even better now. So there's a ton of red flags associated with Norwegian league players, should we say, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, what was that stat you sent to me on Wednesday morning about the first time since Ajax? The first non-Big Five team to win 4 consecutive European games against top league opposition since Ajax in 71-72. 50 years ago.
Well, it says everything, right?
Impressive.
So that was Atletico Madrid had a comprehensive win. Let's touch on the stuff from last night. Let's start with Atalanta Dortmund. Atalanta overturned a 2-0 deficit from the first leg, ended up winning 4-1. The big moment really was at the death where Atalanta got penalty. It was also sending off then. Atalanta scored the penalty 8 minutes into 3 minutes of injury time, I think it was. Amazing penalty. I do think the defender was desperately unlucky. I know the attacker's got blood all over his face, but essentially the ball's gone over his shoulder. He sort of tried to flick it with his leg. His leg's not that high, and the attacker sort of dived lower, and boot has hit his face. There is blood everywhere, but that foot's not that high.
I kind of get where you're coming from. It's European Football Champions League. You're always going to give that. I know he gave it on VAR as well. They're always going to give that penalty, whether it's right or wrong. I can see it both ways. He's gone down. His head's gone down. His player's kicked him in the head.
Oh,
They're just going to give
his
it.
head's below waist height.
Yeah, I know, but
I mean, he's not even. He's not looking. He's not looking at the player.
He's just gone. He's actually connected with the player. Yeah, the player's almost kicked him.
He's not looking at the attacker.
Yeah,
the player's essentially dived into his foot.
Yeah, I know, but it's just they're gonna give it. But
I don't know.
It's good for Italian.
What's the defender meant to do? Just leave it?
Yeah. Well, he's never going to leave it, is he? Because he's just a natural reaction to go and head the ball, as you say. And if he probably put his foot up, he'd probably get done for high foot anyway. So both of them would probably give away a penalty anyway. So it's a no-win situation for the defender.
I just don't.
One of those things, isn't it? Really.
I think it's just an unfortunate sort of. Anyway, Atalanta went through. As you were about to say, I think a big result for Italy.
Yeah, huge. Just because of Juventus going out, Napoli going out, and then none of the other teams going through. And it's the last kick of the game, by the way, and he sticks in the top bins. Brilliant. After about a 5-minute wait, as you said. It's just a heck of a good finish when you look at it left-footed. And it's right in the postage stamp up there. No keeper in the world getting anywhere near it. So, yeah, fair play to Atalanta to overtake that.
I guess one of the things with that penalty is there's no downside to it, if that makes sense. Because you're still going to get extra time. So you got all the glory there. It's not a case of having to score the penalty to keep your team in it, which I think is just even more pressure.
Yeah, and for Atalanta, 2 Premier League rejects. Zakamanka from West Ham, remember him, the centre forward who didn't score a goal for West Ham, looked an absolute cart horse. He obviously scored. And then Zabacosta, the ex-Chelsea wing-back, he scored as well. He looked a cart horse of Chelsea back in the day, yeah. The graveyard for Premier League people is Serie A now.
I mean, there was a ton of interesting games last night, not least Juventus Galatasaray. So Galatasaray went into this game with a 5-2 lead, absolutely cruised that first leg, helped by Juve red card in that first leg. Juve obviously scored relatively, not early, but it was just before half-time, Locatelli with a penalty. Let's touch on the big moment of the game, which was the Lloyd Kelly sending off. I mean, where do we even begin with that? Apart from to say, the game's gone, James. The game has gone. There is not a chance in a million years that is a red card. It's an absolute horrible decision.
The referee, people who haven't watched it, Kelly was already on the booking. He goes up for a header, comes down, and he completely accidentally treads on the guy's Achilles stroke back foot when he's coming down. He's got nowhere else to go. His foot goes on to the player. He hasn't kicked
out or anything. He's literally coming straight down, having jumped up for the ball.
Comes straight back down. The referee immediately gets out the second yellow, sends him off. And then gets called by VAR to go and have a look, to come back, not give him a second yellow, give him a direct red card. What planet is that on? What is the VAR doing anyway, getting involved? And then the referee having the nerve to go and have a look at it and then deciding it's a straight red card. Go and get your P45, mate. Get another job. Clearly unfit for refereeing.
That is up there with one of the worst decisions I can remember seeing in a while. I mean, probably since last week or something, but you know.
It completely changed the game. Well, it didn't actually change the game completely because Juventus obviously then won the game 3-0 in normal time. But
it was an interesting game because obviously, you know, you've got a 2-goal cushion. You're against 10 players. Gatti scored for Juve, And
So just to remind people, Luke, this was in the 48th minute, by the way. Lloyd Kelly got sent off. So basically, the whole of the second half left to play, and it's still only 1-0 to Juventus.
So Gatti got one back. They got nervous, and Galatasaray fell in a heap. I mean, that was one of the worst performances I can remember in terms of controlling a game with an extra player. They looked abysmal, and McKennie got the header at the end. And, I mean, Juve missed other chances. It wasn't... I obviously went to extra time. You could see towards the end of that first half of extra time, Juve looked knackered. And in the end, they've conceded twice. And Galatasaray have limped through. I mean, you have to say hats off to Juve. Great effort.
The 2 red cards over the course of those 2 games have really cost Juventus there. They ran 2 kilometres more, Juventus, with 10 men than Galatasaray did during the game. That's inexcusable. Leroy Sané, have a look at yourself. An absolute disgraceful attitude last night. A disgraceful performance from him on a guy that's on super lot money in Turkey and Istanbul. He wasn't even interested, refusing to track back, refusing to do anything on the pitch. Absolute disgrace from him. But yeah, as you say, Juventus will be kicking themselves. They could have scored in the first 10 minutes of the first half extra time, didn't. And then İlkay Gundogan got hold of the ball and went, "This is the ball, you can't get it off me," and just basically stop playing. Galatasaray stopped playing, give the ball to him, and he just kept hold of it, and legs went out of Juventus, as you said, and Galatasaray went through. One player I was looking out for in that game was Yildiz Yildiz, the Turkish lad, wearing number 10. Yeah, looks really good. The worry I have is his size for Premier League. There's a lot of Premier League clubs who are interested in him. He would need to put on some bulk, but he looks a real talent.
So, obviously, that's... I mean, one thing I do think with Galatasaray, because I was looking at Fenerbahce game, obviously they've got Forest tonight. I do wonder if Turkish football is literally just going to be a league of mercenaries, and, ex-Premier League players on massive money, ex-German, Bundesliga players, basic retirement home for massive wages, big names, and really, really questionable attitudes and work rates. I think Leon Bailey would fit in perfectly there.
There's a few players who could go there, yeah. I'm surprised that Victor Osimhen's still there, actually, because he is a useful striker. He can still do it at the top level.
So we looked at one point, Paris Saint-Germain, Monaco was going to be interesting. Monaco took the lead, and Paris Saint-Germain didn't look comfortable. They weren't playing very well either. And luckily for them, it all changed in the 60th minute. Koulibaly picked up a second yellow card. Having been booked 3 minutes earlier, he could have been booked in that first half as well. I think the actual sending off itself, I know in Europe we work on the basis every foul is basically a yellow card. I don't really know what he's supposed to do. He's not gone to ground. He's just literally, not run into the player. But the Paris Saint-Germain players made such a meal out of it. But he got sent off, and then literally 20 seconds later, from the resulting free kick, Marquinhos tapped one in, and it felt pretty much tie over.
Yeah, it was tie over. Yeah, PSG haven't been impressive recently at all. So obviously no Dembele last night. He's injured. I'm yet to be convinced how good they actually are. I know they won a Champions League last season, but as said on this pod, they beat Liverpool on penalties. They beat Villa by the odd goal and lost comfortably probably at Villa Park. Yes, they beat Arsenal at home and away. And they beat Inter Milan, who has seen a downright poor anyway. So let's see how... I wouldn't be afraid of playing them if I'm a Liverpool fan at all, or any other. Tottenham played quite well against them when they went there. Oh, sorry, Newcastle, sorry.
I do think they had obviously when they won it last year, they had a patch where they were able to roll out the same team pretty much every game. Obviously, Dembele had bits and pieces, but this year they've had a ton of injuries, and they just look like they haven't found any rhythm offensively at all. Obviously, Dembele was out again last night. Ruiz was out. It's just difficult when you're trying to mix and match. They don't have enough quality replacements who fit in well enough. And then the other game was Real Madrid Benfica. Real Madrid won 2-1. Vinicius scored again late on. Quite a tidy finish. I didn't see much of the game. I only saw the end, but it wasn't particularly exciting.
They were poor, Madrid. I watched the first 60 minutes of that. Benfica could have easily been further ahead than the 1-0, and then they conceded straight away as well. So 1-1 after 16 minutes, but they conceded that equaliser 2.5 minutes after going ahead. And yeah, Madrid just don't do anything. They played a flat 4-4-2. No Mbappe because he's got a slight knee injury. And their tactics literally seemed just give the ball to Vinny and see what he can do. And see if he can beat the right back and see what he can create. There's absolutely nothing on the right hand side with Trent and Valverde at all. And then they suddenly, after about 35-40 minutes, they just started playing all over the place. There was no structure in midfield. You suddenly saw Valverde on the left, Camavinga on the right again, and it was just like, whose tactics are these? Are they Arbeloa's, or are the players just mid-game just going, oh, we'll do what we want now. We're Real Madrid players. We can do what we want.
I mean, to be fair to them, last night they were obviously missing Mbappe. They were missing Bellingham. They were missing Rodrigo suspended. So they were missing some pretty big name players.
They are, but they've got no structure at all. And I look at their back four, and I go, Trent Alexander-Arnold, we know everything about him. He switches off for the Benfica goal again. To be fair to Trent, his ability to use his left foot is underestimated, how he can get himself out of trouble and move the ball quickly rather than having to go backwards. He can pass it into midfield. I do like that from him, but he's only just come back from injury. He's just had a bad season. He's had 2 bad injuries. Raul Asensio, yeah, decent. Rudiger, bang average. And the left-back Carreras, the Portuguese lad, he's decent. But they have no protection at all. They're all over the place. And if other teams, the top side, looking against that, you can get out of that back four. The one big player for them, and they need to keep fit, is Thibaut Courtois. Heck of a good save down low to his right-hand side at 1-1 as well in the first half. He is absolutely fantastic. And he's underappreciated how good he is. We talk about top-class keepers in the world, with Alisson and Raya. He and Oblak, right. He is right up there.
Please, rewind. You didn't just mention Raya in the same sentence as Courtois and Alisson, surely?
Well, most people do, don't they? I don't, but
I mean, you only have to see Courtois in these Champions League games. He is enormous. His shot stopping is unreal. Like, how quickly he got down to that ball. It was absolutely smashed. Unbelievable save. And it's just expected. I mean, he makes so many great saves. And by the way, we talked about Vicario last week, right? Do you honestly think Gyökeres would have scored if that had been Courtois in goal?
No.
Okay. But, yeah. Enough.
So, the only stat from that Real Madrid game is that is the 29th consecutive season Real Madrid have qualified for the last 16 in the Champions League.
Impressive.
29 in a row.
So, Champions League draw is tomorrow, I believe. Tomorrow morning, I think it's 11, 12 o'clock. We have a rough idea as to what's going to happen with the draw. I mean, they do like to make a big drama out of all these things.
Yeah, so it starts at 11 o'clock UK time, 12 o'clock CET. They'll have all the usual palaver of introducing whoever they've got on stage. So probably 11:15 by the time it starts. So run through the English teams who they can get. Arsenal can get Leverkusen or Atalanta. Chelsea can get Newcastle or PSG. Liverpool can get Atletico Madrid or Galatasaray. Man City can get Bodø, Glimt or Real Madrid. Newcastle is obviously, they can get Chelsea or Barcelona. And Tottenham can get Atletico Madrid or Galatasaray. So the draw's already been decided. So you've already got the structure in place. So at the top of the bracket is a harder draw. So at the moment, Paris Saint-Germain versus Barcelona or Chelsea. Galatasaray, Liverpool or Tottenham. Madrid, Sporting or Man City, Atalanta, Arsenal, Bayern Munich. That's where all the big boys are in that top half. Because if you look at the bottom half, you have Newcastle versus Chelsea or Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Tottenham or Liverpool, Bodø, Glimt, Man City or Sporting, and Leverkusen, Munich or Arsenal. So if you're fans of, say, Arsenal, you definitely want to be in the bottom half of the draw because you avoid
all the big boys.
All the big boys. So the draw of tomorrow, they also then make the draw for the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and they decide whom home and away in the final in Budapest, which is on the 30th of May. The next round is on the 10th and 11th of March, Tuesday and Wednesday of that week, and then the following week. One takeaway from that actually is that if Newcastle play Chelsea, they could play 3 times in 6 or 8 days, depending on when they play. Because they meet each other in the Premier League on Saturday the 14th of March at a 5:30 kickoff. So
I'm glad.
I remember those days.
Tonali's going to be well rested for that game, James. That period.
Yeah, I remember when Liverpool played Arsenal 3 times in 6 days. They played Wednesday away at the Emirates. They then played Saturday morning away at the Emirates, and then played Tuesday at home at Anfield years ago, 10, 12 years ago now, if not for longer ago. And Liverpool completely changed their league game, so their league team on the Saturday. So,
but, I mean, if you look at Chelsea, for example, can't do that. They need those top 5 places. I mean, obviously Newcastle are chasing as well, but it's a bit more of a distant dream for Newcastle.
Yeah, so if you want to be in it, you want to be in the bottom half of the draw. So Liverpool really do want to, I know it'd be probably the harder game, Atletico Madrid, but you want to be in that bottom half of the draw. So you could have a Liverpool Chelsea quarterfinal, Liverpool Barcelona quarterfinal, Liverpool Newcastle, and because there are so many UK British teams in it, you are going to have domestic games coming up. So yeah, and it's back to back. So now to the end of the season, basically, barring an international break, you are playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday kind of thing, 3 times a week. Brutal now.
So, yeah, one thing we were going to do in this pod today was we're going to talk about the England squad. Oh no, actually, before we talk about that, sorry, let's go back. You got Europa League tonight. You got Forest Fenerbahce, 3-0 up from the first leg. You know, I can't imagine them having too many problems. I'm intrigued to see what team Forest pick, how strong they go. Bear in mind they're away at Brighton at the weekend, so maybe have to keep a bit of an eye on that. Palace have to be beating Zrinjski. They drew 1-1 in the first leg. It'd be disastrous for Palace if they were to lose that. They have had a habit, though, in this competition of losing or not beating teams they should be beating. So that will be interesting tonight.
They haven't actually got a great record in this competition, have they, Palace, at all?
Well, hence why they're in this round of matches.
I think they're still favourites, aren't they, for it as well?
I mean, it shows you why it's... They were when I looked last time. It shows you why it's so important to make those top 8 places. Just get a couple of weeks of, bit of respite. So, yeah, so one thing we want to do in this pod was look at... Obviously, we've still got to look at the Premier League coming up. Do you want to do that now, and then we'll look at the England squad after that?
Yeah, let's do the Premier League now, and then we'll do the England
big game
later.
Friday night, Wolves-Villa. I am very worried for Villa in this particular game. They are struggling at the moment without the midfield 3. everything's just a bit of a grind at the moment. It does make me laugh. I can't get away from the fact that people keep commenting on it without mentioning the injuries. If you take the top 3 or 4 midfielders out of any team, and I include Arsenal in this, is their team is going to look bang average, and that's what Villa are looking like at the moment. Would I want to be back in Villa, odds on, to go to Wolves on a Friday night? No. It's a local derby. Villa have not a great record against Wolves. Certainly at Molineux. It just has all the hallmarks of a long and painful evening.
Yeah, it's a tough. Even though Wolves are bottom, they're actually playing quite well. So, yeah, it's a tough game for Villa, kind of thing. That Friday night game as well, Wolves fans should be up for it. So there's a report on the BBC about Aston Villa overperforming kind of thing this year. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's basically saying their goals, their shots, their expected goals, and their XG overperformance, and it's they're 8th in goals, which whatever. Shots they're 10th, expected goals they're 12th. XG overperformance, they're 6th, ranked in the out of the 20 in the league. Their defence, obviously, good defence, got only 28 goals conceded, the 3rd best in the league. Shots faced, 3-4-6, 13th equal. XG against, 10th. XG overperformance on defence is 1st. So basically, trying to say...
Hold on. Right, why is that, James? What's the one reason for that? There's one reason. Correct. But people will absolutely slate him.
No, he just throws in clangers every so often, doesn't he? But he does save you a lot of points. That's proven last week when he made a couple of good saves, and then we kind of discussed it. Yeah, so going back to the game, well, it'd be interesting to see, does Watkins start or does Abraham start?
Watkins doesn't look fit.
Something's off with him.
He's had a niggling knee issue. I mean, his confidence has always been hit and miss. I mean, we'll talk about him more, actually, when we talk about the England squad in a little bit. But one player I will be intrigued to see, actually, is whether Barkley gets a start. He looked really good against Leeds when he came on. He's obviously another central midfielder with injury problems. So I don't know if he would be fit enough to play a whole game. But creatively, they looked far more impressive when he came on. They just moved the ball so much quicker than how pedestrian it had been. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with him.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing Matheus Mane play a game for Wolves. There's a tug of war with him actually regarding who he plays for internationally. Portugal obviously want to get him involved into the national side, and I think so does Tuchel. Obviously, it'd be too early for him to go to the World Cup, but there's a bit of tug of war internationally who he plays for. He's available for both countries, Portugal and England.
So we have Bournemouth, Sunderland, Saturday lunchtime. No huge opinions on that, really.
When are Sunderland fans leaving? Today or tomorrow?
I mean, just touching on that is brutal. I mean, when you talk about, fans being central to the game, you can't be having 12:30 kickoffs. What's that? 6 hours, 7 hours? I don't know.
And the rest. Well, probably be no one on the road when you leave at midnight in the morning.
And then Saturday afternoon we have Brentford away at Burnley. Now I'm intrigued to see which Brentford turn up, because Brentford have been brilliant recently, and then they didn't turn up against Brighton last week. They do have a habit a little bit of this, and I think that's one of the problems with slightly lesser teams is you do get. One of the problems I have is inconsistency. But it was interesting that Brentford were missing Coyote. I haven't seen any team news yet for this week, whether he will be back or not. He is obviously a big player for them. I mean, he's a decent right back as well, not just a throw-in specialist, but he does make a difference. Liverpool are home against West Ham. I've got a sneaky feeling West Ham could nick something in this game.
Sorry, quickly going back to it. Bournemouth, Sunderland. It's 350 miles. It is. So that's an 8-hour trip on a bus. Madness. Brentford will have. Is Kevin Sade back as well from his suspension?
He was back last week.
So he's back. So yeah. On to Liverpool. Just don't know. Liverpoal, as you said on Monday, were disgraceful against Forest. So, and they've had 3 days off. Slot's given them another 3 days off in the week for no reason whatsoever. Typical of Slot giving.
They were tired after that massive effort they put in against Forest, James.
So yeah, I mean, Liverpool must hope that Wirtz is back. Otherwise, there's no creativity in that side really. And Slot needs to abandon the idea of playing Szoboszlai right back. Get him into midfield where you need him in midfield, Slot, and drop your two sons, Gravenberch and Gakpo, please, for the good of your. It'd be interesting to see if. Well, he won't play Ingemersh. There's no point talking about it, but he should. West Ham, yeah. Nuno obviously went there last season at Forest and Apps and was the only home real defeat for Liverpool. 1-0. Hudson-Odoi scored for Forest that day. West Ham will fancy their chances. Why not? They can get at Liverpool. Whereas Somerville can definitely get to, on the left-hand side, whether it's Gomez or it's Curtis Jones. It's a tough game. All Premier League games are tough as per se, unless you're playing Burnley, really. So
I just wonder if Liverpool. So I think if you're ever going to play Liverpool at Anfield, you want a 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon. It is without doubt the best time to go to Anfield. The crowd tends to be a little bit flat, looking for inspiration rather than creating the atmosphere themselves. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving West Ham too much credit. But West Ham have played pretty well in the last 4 or 5 games against good teams as well. They've not been against, poor teams. They're going to be confident. They're going to be hungry. I think one thing for West Ham is they actually have to take their chances. They've been so wasteful recently, so that will make a difference. But
yeah, Liverpool need to win the next. Liverpool need to win the next 2 games. They've got West Ham on Saturday and Wolves away next week to hope to get in that top 5. As long as Konate and Van Dijk continue to play well, then I'm not too bothered. But that midfield needs an absolute rocket. Anyway, moving on.
Newcastle Everton also 3:00 on Saturday afternoon. Obviously Newcastle just fixture after fixture. I mean, Everton are no great shakes. I can't imagine that Moyes will send out anything that's remotely interesting from a attacking point of view. He'll sit back and try and contain Newcastle. Newcastle do struggle at times against teams who sit back. I mean, I don't know. It's just Newcastle have to win. They have to find a way to win that game. Otherwise, their league season begins to disappear quite quickly, I think, at this stage of the season.
Yeah. It was Everton a lot better away from home than at home, where they've lost 7 games at home this season already. Interesting to see if Jared Branswaite plays again. I do like him. He's a centre-back, but he's playing left-back at the moment. And Newcastle, do they go with Gordon up front as a centre-forward, or do they play Visa or Rotomade? Probably play Gordon, won't they? Gordon, Barnes, another on the right-hand side. It is a Newcastle just need to win that game.
I suspect they won't go with Elanga. Let's put it that way. So they're not going to get in behind Everton. Everton won't come out and play. So it's why, in some respects, I could easily imagine a Walter Made or have some focal point up front.
Just to occupy the 2 centre backs at Everton. Yeah.
You're not going to. I mean, obviously United scored the other day, getting in behind Everton. But as a general rule, it's going to be really tough for Newcastle to get in behind. And that also limits Gordon somewhat as well. He's much better, I always think, away from home or against good teams at home, where he can get a little bit more space. When he's playing against low block, not that effective, should we say.
That's his limitations as a player, though, Gordon. He's very good when there's space and he can run into space and he's not, there's a load of people around him. He's brilliant when the play's open, as you say, but when it's tight and it's low blocks, he's not really got the technical ability to go and beat a man or stand a man up, barring knocking it 10 yards past him, trying to out-sprint the chap. Just watch him.
So one of the biggest games of the weekend is the 5:30 game on Saturday. We have Leeds against Manchester City. Really tough game for Manchester City, I think. Ellen Road's a really tough place to go. Saturday, early evening kickoff. It will be lively. Leeds are obviously fighting for their lives in terms of Premier Leagues and relegation. City remain unconvincing. But this is a similar fixture to the one that Arsenal had recently. Arsenal went there, didn't play amazing in the first half, but they ended up walking away with a very comfortable win. So it's going to be interesting to see what City can do as a pretty direct comparison just a couple of weeks apart.
Yeah, can Dominic Calvert-Lewin cause it to City centre-backs, whoever they may be, Mark Gay in, does Diaz back after getting hauled off at half-time last week? City just need to win, put the pressure back on, get it down to 2 points again.
And then Sunday, some very interesting games on Sunday. We've got Brighton Forest. Obviously, Forest have got a game tonight. Massively important game. They're only 2 points clear of West Ham. Brighton finally got a win of significance last week against Brentford. Forest have got a bit of a swagger. Yes, they lost against Liverpool, but they played pretty well. Interesting matchup, I think.
If Forest could get a goal scorer, they create a lot of chances. Like Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi, Hutchinson. They've got two solid midfielders. Well, we know Elliot Anderson. They can sit back and counter-attack Brighton. Let's see. That's not a... would you be backing Brighton at that price at 5-4?
Well, I think the difference with Brighton is Brighton will press them. So they're not going to let Forest out easily. So it's just an interesting match. I think, Forest need to start picking up points. It's all going well having a good performance and not picking up points. They would much rather at the moment just get points. They can't be worried about performances. They just need results.
They just need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. Hardest thing in football, but they are missing Chris Wood a bit this season.
Fulham Tottenham, so same applied for Tottenham as it did for Forest, apart from the fact that Tottenham aren't playing well, haven't shown any signs of life under... I did see quite a big Twitter account was mentioning that apparently Igor Tudor is already under pressure after one game against the best team in the league. I mean, what are we even doing at times? I mean... But it was such an underwhelming... I mean, this will give us a much better idea as to where this Tottenham team is under Tudor. I never think... You never judge a team by playing an Arsenal or a Man City. It's these games where you're away at a mid-table team. We'll get a much better idea where this Tottenham team is. The problem is they're still missing a ton of players.
Yeah, Fulham had a good win last weekend at Sunderland as well. Tottenham have had another week of training. Let's see how he performs. This, as you say, it's a London derby as well, so the players can't get up for it as well. And they know it's on the line. Because if they lose this...
London derby. I can't be having this as a significant game, James. Come on.
But it still is. It's still that... It's not an easy place to go to for them, kind of thing. It's a narrow pitch.
I'm not saying
it is still London derby. The fans and things like that. It's not... Harry Wilson's in form, having the season of his life. Jimenez scored LC. It won't be easy for Tottenham at all.
I'm not saying it will be at all. And Tottenham have really look really poor going forward. I mean, you'd expect Solanke to be back and starting, which will make a difference.
And Richarlison, do you reckon both of them start, or just play one of them?
Richarlison won't start. It'll be Solanke who starts.
And they played a 3-5-2 or they played a 4-2-3-1? Just wait.
He plays wing backs.
When they haven't got a left-sided wing back, have they? They play Jed Spence, don't they? Though they haven't got a natural left footer who can play there, was giving them width, have they?
But the problem is Udogie's out injured.
Yeah, yeah. Spence can do the job. I do like Jed Spence, but yeah.
Man United Palace. Again, give us a better idea as to where Carrick and United are. Obviously, they've got some results this year. They haven't been. I still don't think they're a great team. Palace have been poor though. Obviously, they've got Conference League game tonight as well. I do think this could set up nicely for Palace though. They do like sitting back, and I do think with this United team, if you hit them directly in transitions, you can get at them. You only have to look at who if you can get a bit of pace around Maguire, you can expose him.
Yeah, Strand Larson and Jeremy Pino and Ismail Sarr started last week, didn't they? So just hope those three. Hope that Wharton doesn't do anything stupid. Like he's got a tendency at the moment to get booked and then walking a tightrope during the game. Where he's just like, I don't know what's going on with him. Obviously, has he switched off knowing he's not going to be at Palace next summer? But I've been disappointed with Wharton this season. I'd expect Man United to win that somehow, get over the line. They just seem to be doing that under Carrick.
Well, they've got some proper they've got some very
goal scorers,
high quality forward players.
Yeah.
And then the big game, obviously, is Arsenal-Chelsea, 4:30 Sunday afternoon. I know you have thoughts on this.
Just look at the Chelsea midfield and go, I can think they can cope with that Arsenal midfield. Obviously, Caicedo and Andre Santos will play in that too. So Caicedo's walking a bit of a tightrope as well. He's on 8 bookings. The limit is 10 before you get a 2-game ban more, and he's got to get into. He's got 5 games left of that before they don't take into bookings into consideration
He's
anymore.
Lucky he's not already reached that level. Every game I watch him play.
He gets booked at Chelsea 1 in every 3 Premier League games. It's remarkable. I just want to see Estavio play for Chelsea. I don't know where you play him. Do you drop him from Neto or do you drop him from Cole Palmer? Because Fernandes will play in that 10. I just think that Chelsea can go there and cause Arsenal issues. Arsenal, especially, the game really will change depending on what happened on Saturday night, Leeds-Man City. Because if Man City win and it's 2 points, there's an awful lot more pressure than it would be if Man City don't win the game. And Chelsea would nothing less. Well, as well, Liverpool, if they win on Saturday as well, and United have already won, Chelsea can't afford to go further behind, especially United kind of thing. I just got a sneaky feeling that Chelsea can do something there. I really do. I think they're useful kind of thing. Obviously, Fofana's suspended anyway. They have to change the centre back again. So keep 11 players on the pitch, Chelsea, and he might do something. Hopefully, he doesn't do what he did against them in the second leg of the semi-final to that extent. I don't mind him keeping him in the game and not allowing Arsenal get ahead of steam up. But at some point, you're going to have to attack Arsenal.
Well, you say that. I think Chelsea would snap your hands off for a draw here and now.
Yeah. Yes, they would.
The emphasis here is on Arsenal winning. They're at home against any team, right? They're going to try and win the title. That lead, if it's down to 2, right? The pressure's on Arsenal to go and get that win. It's not on Chelsea. I think Chelsea would be thrilled with a first half as quiet and subdued as that second leg was.
Yeah, that's what I think they'll go. I think they'll do that again. But then at some point, in the second half, it's still 0-0. You should try and start playing some football, trying to attack, or they're just going to go there and take the 0-0.
I think if you look at Chelsea, when you look at the end of the season,
a 0-0 is not bad at all.
Champions League, a 0-0 at Arsenal would be a point gained. It's the results against your Leeds and your Burnleys and all these other ones at home that cost you. It wouldn't be a loss or a draw against Arsenal. A draw away at Arsenal, I think, is a really good result.
Yeah, I just think they're underestimating how good Chelsea can be. They've got some really good players. João Pedro, we saw what he did in that.
As they should be. They've spent billions.
Yeah. João Pedro's been brilliant the last few months, kind of thing. And you see what he did in the semi-final. He made Saliba and Gabriel look ordinary at times. His first touch, he's big and strong and physical. I think they can cause some trouble. Again, it goes back to, though, can you defend set pieces at Arsenal? Can Sanchez command that 6-yard box? That is the worry.
I think the important thing for Chelsea... So one of the reasons why I think they'd be so happy with the first half, like in that Carabao Cup semi-final, is they limited the number of set pieces they conceded. So they weren't facing a barrage of Arsenal corners. So one of the big things with Arsenal is you have to try and not concede corners. It's easier said than done, and not give away silly free kicks. It becomes a numbers game in the end. You just can't let Arsenal have 10, 12 14 corners in that game, because one of them will cause you mayhem. And Chelsea have shown that defensively they're so poor against them.
So there's obviously chat about Cucurella's obviously got a hamstring strain, so he'd be a big miss as well, kind of thing. But yeah, fun game Sunday afternoon.
Okay, so I think that's enough Premier League talk. So one thing you wanted to talk about was England squad for the World Cup. So England have three. Obviously, the first group game for England is the 17th of June against Croatia, and then the 23rd of June they're against Ghana, and then 27th of June they're against Panama. So prior to that, we've got 2 friendlies at the end of March, so literally a month. So 27th and 31st against Uruguay and Japan. And so apparently the squads get announced. So there's no specific date yet, but apparently it's going to be late May, early June, once all the domestic seasons have finished. So obviously Champions League is, I think you said 30th of May. Final Premier League games 24th of May. Let's talk about this England squad, James. Goalkeepers. So I'll give a few names. So let's work on the assumption there will be 3 goalkeepers picked.
There has to be 3 out of a squad of 23.
So for England, the ones in sort of contention are Pickford, Henderson, Pope, and Trafford.
Are we doing this on my squad or Tuchel's squad, or your squad and Tuchel's squad?
Well, let's do both. What would your squad? Who would your 3 goalkeepers be, and then who do you think the 3 goalkeepers Tuchel will pick?
I think it'd both be the same: Henderson, Pickford, and Trafford.
I would concur with that, to be honest. I think Pope has been really poor this year for Newcastle. I think you could see the fact that Newcastle was so interested in Trafford in the summer. I mean, that's one regret I think Newcastle will have, is not getting Trafford over the line and letting him go to City. Obviously, Trafford will regret that move as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get revisited this summer, although I suspect there might be more competition for Trafford. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Emi Martinez was to leave Villa, if Villa were interested in someone like a Trafford, that type of player. I think Pope hasn't shown enough at Newcastle. You know, he's obviously dreadful with the ball at his feet. It's just tough to imagine him being a factor in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Right backs. So some contenders. We've got Reece James, Alexander-Arnold, Livramento, Rico Lewis. Any others?
No, those are 4. So mine would be Reece James and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't think Tuchel will pick Arnold. I think he'll pick Tino Livramento. Now, we're doing this on if every player's fit. So just as a thing, we're doing it as every player's fit. I know players won't be fit, etc. But I think he'll want to pick Tino Livramento and Reece James at right back. I wouldn't have any qualms about it. I just think with Trent Alexander-Arnold, sometimes you want the creativity to break teams down, that ability. I don't think he will, but I would. Yourself?
Trent would be one of my first names on the team sheet, James, but that's always been the case. The problem is none of these managers know how to actually fit him in the squad and team. I think Reece James is always an interesting one. You know, we've seen he's not even always first choice right back at Chelsea in terms of obviously playing midfield at times. He's played centre back this year. You know, he obviously has a whole series of injury issues. You know, he can look very good. He's quite an experienced player now as well. I think he'll pick Reece James. I think he'll pick Livramento. I don't mind Livramento. I've said before, I think Livramento and Hall are amongst the best set of fullbacks in the Premier League. I think the bonus with Livramento is he can play both left back and right back if needed. He's obviously got injury problems at the moment, so some of that will depend on that.
I'll throw out another name out there. Jed Spence.
Don't see it. His form earlier in the season was really, really interesting. Early on in the season, he looked very good. his form has fallen off a cliff in recent months. That's more in my opinion from what I've seen. One of the problems he has at Spurs is that they sort of had three fullbacks for the two fullback positions. So they obviously had Porro, Udogie, and Spence, and they were sort of rotating through the three of them, and one of them kept sort of missing out, and it feels like he's never really got back into any sort of rhythm. He's even been playing left midfield, wide left for Tottenham at times because of injuries. The one thing he is an incredible athlete. He has incredible pace. He does have that versatility that they may like. So, yeah, I mean, you could argue that they're the types of players you want in these squads. Rather than, say, we'll come on to, say, a Luke Shaw, potentially, as a left-back. You'd take a Jed Spence over a Luke Shaw all day long, I think, in terms of just what he gives you in terms of versatility in this sort of squad.
Yeah, let's move on to left-backs. So my two would be Nick O'Reilly and Lewis Hall.
Well, so I think the interesting one here is obviously Lewis Skelly's gone from being first choice almost to a non-factor. He just isn't playing at Arsenal. He's always been regarded, I think, as more of a midfielder than a left-back. He's playing at left-back more out of need. But having played at left-back and done well there, he must be wondering what on earth is going on this season. He needs to be playing. He can't possibly get a start or go on this World Cup tour. He just hasn't played enough. I mean, we touched on Luke Shaw. Obviously, Shaw played at centre-back a lot as well. But as a pure left-back, I don't see him being in the same... just even in the same planet as Lewis Hall and Nick O'Reilly.
Agreed.
Centre-back's interesting. I think Guehi looks to be the one certainty. Tuchel likes him. Moves to big team now as well, which will only help his cause.
Yeah, I think they'll pick four. I think they'll pick four centre backs, so 8 defenders. So, yeah, Guehi's definitely in there. Konsa's definitely in there. Obviously, they're probably just 2 starting centre backs. But then you've got decisions because you've got the likes of John Stones, Dan Burn, Jarrell Konsa, Branswaite, Harry Maguire. Obviously, the one issue who won't play is Levi Colwell. ACL won't be anywhere near the squad, unfortunately.
I think it's really hard to pick a John Stones. He has not played in months. I know he's super experienced, and he was first choice England centre back earlier, back end of last year. But if you're not playing, and who knows when he will be back playing, it's just difficult to sort of trust his injury record. How good is he nowadays as well?
He was always overrated. I agree with you. He's not going to play for City when they've got Diaz, Gay, and Guardiola's going to be back anyway from his leg injury. I wouldn't pick him. The other 2 centre backs I'd pick are 2 players I don't rate. I would pick Harry Maguire. I would pick him. He can play. I didn't think he could play on the right hand side, but he can play on the right hand side. Obviously, he prefers playing the left hand side as a 2. If you want to go 3 at the back, he's almost perfect to play 3 at the centre back. And another player I don't rate at all, but I think international football could be, especially under Tuchel, with corners and set pieces if you wanted to.
Dan Burn.
Correct. Yeah. I could see him picking Dan Burn. I think he will do. I don't think he'll pick Harry Maguire because he hasn't picked him in any of the squads, Tuchel. I would pick him. Is he going to pick John Stones? And he talked about it. I think he probably will. I probably would pick Harry Maguire.
I'd have no problems with Harry Maguire. I've been a big critic of his in the last couple of years, but this year he's actually looked really, really solid. And he obviously, you can't, if you're picking Burn for his set piece prowess, I think Maguire's almost better from set pieces than Burn even is. Burn's obviously taller. Burn is an incredibly bang average defender.
Maguire. I just think Maguire's not going to cause any issues in camp as well. He's more experienced now. He's obviously been a United captain, obviously isn't anymore. I'd pick him. I don't think Tuchel will, but there you go. There's 8 defenders and 3 keepers. So what's that? That's 11 players out. So we've got 12 now we can pick.
I mean, just quickly, I would touch on Branthwaite. I think it's a real shame Branthwaite's had all these injuries because I think he has the upside of being a starter, potentially, not just in the squad. So we'll wait and see with him, but it's a bit of a shame. Central midfield, let's just assume Declan Rice is going to be there, which is understandable and fair enough. How many central midfielders are you picking, James?
My midfield would be... So how many have I got down here? So Eddie Anderson, Declan Rice, Adam Wharton, 3 nailed on star, 3 nailed on a plane. So out between 3. I think you're taking one more. So the player at the front of the queue is my favourite Liverpool legend, ex-Liverpool legend, Captain Fantastic, Jordan Henderson. Shouldn't be anywhere near the squad, but I think Tuchel will take him. I wouldn't take him. So you're looking at other players. Probably Mainu.
I really struggle with the idea that Jordan Henderson should be anywhere near this England squad. He's not first team starter at Brentford. I mean, the game has passed him by massively. Oh, he's experienced. I just don't see it. Even 2 or 3 years ago, he was absolutely past it. It's not like he's had a Xhaka type season at Sunderland where you go, wow, he's had an amazing season. He just hasn't.
Yeah, I think he'll pick him. I wouldn't. I've been impressed with Kobe Mainu since he's come back into United team under Carrick. I really have been impressed by him. He's a good footballer. He just needed an arm around his shoulder and also a position that he could play. But obviously, when Amarin came in, they moved Bruno back into his position, and then he got fed up not playing, and he needed to continue playing. Because he's played a lot of football as a kid, then suddenly he didn't play for 15, 16 months, and no wonder it's taken him time to get back up to speed. I do like him a lot as a player. I think he'll pick Henderson. I think they'll take the 4 there players. Because then, if I'm moving on quickly, so you're only taking 4 centre midfielders. I think he'll take Henderson. Whatever reason he's got.
What position are you playing Bellingham in?
So I'll do my 11 after this, because then I'm moving on. So now I've got 3 keepers, 8 defenders, 11, and I've got 4 midfielders, 15. So I've got 8 players now to pick. So these are my next 8 who I think I'll pick in no particular order. Morgan Rogers, obviously. Jude Bellingham. So now I've got 6. Saka. Kane, obviously. I think he'll pick Rashford. I think he'll pick Anthony Gordon. So now I've got to pick 2 from a lot of positions. Because you're talking, the likes of Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Madueke. You've got loads of players to pick from. Who else have you got?
Bowen.
Curtis Jones, Ebrichieze, Jared Bowen. You've got a few players who are going to be big name players. Ollie Watkins, who are going to be missing out. So I last night I did it, and I didn't actually have a space in the 23, let alone 11 for Cole Palmer. Because I picked Phil Foden over him. Because I think Bellingham you have to take. I don't think you pick Watkins either. I think they play Foden as a false 9, or they play Bellingham as a false 9, or they play Rodgers as a false 9 if Kane's rested or suspended or unavailable.
It is tricky. I think the Foden Palmer conversation is interesting because I don't think Palmer's reached anywhere near the heights that people would make you believe, shall we say. I think, he's obviously had a lot of injury problems. He played Club World Championships last summer. I think it's had an effect on him. All I know is I want the player who's picked, if it's one of Palmer or Foden, to be in form. And at the moment, Foden is miles off it as well. He obviously had a good spell just before Christmas, that sort of time earlier in the season, where he looked to be finding himself again. Foden isn't starting for City at the moment. I find it. There's a chance Palmer doesn't start for Chelsea. I think this where it gets really interesting is you want players who are turning up and performing for their club. Eze hardly started for Arsenal. One thing about Gordon is at least for he gives you something different in terms of a bit of pace. I know you don't like him, don't rate him, but he does give you something different. I can't imagine a world where Gordon isn't part of that 23-man squad.
Yeah, so I've gone for 5 forwards to Thursday. So I've gone with Saka, Kane and Gordon as your front three. That's your 4-2-3-1. They're your 3 forwards essentially. And then the backups to them, I've gone for Rashford and Madueke at Arsenal. Now, I could make an argument that Palmer should be there or Foden. So I think it's 2 from those 3. Foden, Madueke and Palmer. I think 2 from 3. Tuchel likes Madueke. He's a carbon copy of Saka on the right-hand side. He can beat a player on either side. I'm not sure Palmer or Foden can do that. And he's got the man in possession. He's been playing well for England as well. It's just a tricky one because I think I would pick Bellingham. I think he's a very good player. I think he's a generational player kind of thing. Yeah, he's had a few injuries, played a lot of football. And he can play the false 9 as well if you need him play. It's going to be a big player who won't be playing. Eze's got no chance in that squad, I don't think. I don't see how you can fit him. How you can get anywhere near that. Unless there's injuries. In this conversation, everyone's fully fit. So, Eze, no for me. Same as Curtis Jones or anyone like that. I'm picking Foden and Madueke and not picking Cole Palmer. Who you leaving out?
I'd leave Madueke out probably, but that's not to say that I think he will. I just don't think he's on the same levels as the others. I think Rodgers is interesting because, what was always interesting was if you said 6 months ago whenever you heard people talk about this selection, it was always Bellingham, Palmer, Foden, others, and then Rodgers. And then Rodgers obviously Tuchel saw something in Rodgers that he liked. He's played well for England. He's playing well for Villa. And there's still almost disbelief from people that Rodgers would start ahead of Golden Boy Cole Palmer or Phil Foden. But they haven't. What I like about Tuchel is it looks like, with the exception of Henderson, is he will pick players based on form, which is what you want. We see it with other sports like cricket. We say like a Joss Butler. If you come into a tournament in poor form, you don't find that form during the tournament. You can have all the class you want, but if you're not played that much or you're not in form, I wouldn't be taking them to this World Cup.
Yeah, and Tuchel, as you say, has shown that. So, anyway, my 11 for the first game on what day is the first game? Who are they playing? 17th, isn't it? No, it's just when the tournament starts.
They're playing Croatia on the 17th.
Oh, they are playing Croatia. Would be Pickford, James, Konsa, Gay, O'Reilly, Anderson, Rice, Rodgers, Saka, Gordon, Kane.
I would agree with that, apart from I'd have Hall at left back.
Hall's not guaranteed to be in the squad, though, with Tuchel. He's not even been in the squad recently.
It would be an absolute travesty if Lewis Hall wasn't in that England squad. He should be starting for England. He's that good. I think the striker situation is interesting because the options are so limited. So behind Kane, unless you do use the likes of Bellingham or Foden, Solanke's obviously missed a lot of time this year with injuries. Delap has had a really poor year for Chelsea. Whether it be not helped by injuries, not helped by suspensions, just not helped by the fact that he joined a team who have spent a fortune on other players. Tony obviously disappeared to Saudi, so rules him out pretty much. I guess the other one who was being talked about was Danny Welbeck, which, when you look at some of the other options, I don't think Welbeck would be the worst shout in terms of giving you a different option. So Ollie Watkins would naturally be England's second choice striker at the moment, but it really depends on which Ollie Watkins is playing. If it's the Ollie Watkins I've seen in recent weeks play for Villa, he shouldn't be anywhere near this squad. He's been abysmal. One thing I would say about Watkins is he does add a lot in terms of overall games. It's not just finishing, because his finishing is dreadful. In terms of running the channels and potentially holding the ball up. Now, it might be the quality of service to him at Villa has been really poor recently, and I think it has. But I don't think he's in a position at the moment to be seriously considered as that backup option. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go, but I don't think he should be. I'd much rather see a Rashford or someone like that potentially. Gordon can play up front if needs be. You have other options. I mean, Kane missing out would just be a disaster for England, just generally. But I just struggled to see how Ollie Watkins can make a difference for England.
I don't think they're picking a backup striker as per se. I don't think he's not knocking down the door going, pick me kind of thing, like he was 18 months ago in the Euros. And he scored that great goal in that European Championships, actually. Great finish. You're then having to leave out a Foden or a Bellingham kind of thing. And a Palmer or something like that. So I don't think you need to have him just so that he might play the odd game. How often is he going to take off Harry Kane? Unless you're ahead, like really. Any playoff game, unless he's injured, he's always going to play. So the last 32, last 16 quarters, semi-final, final, whatever, Harry Kane's playing the full game. So we know that.
Well, honestly, if I needed a goal at the end of a game, I'd much rather bring a Bowen on. I think Bowen's finishing is so much better than a Watkins' finishing. I know,
but he's not going to be anywhere near the squad.
Recently. No, he's not. But I'm just saying, in terms of if you want actually have a player who can score goals, or if you're chasing a game, I just don't see it with Watkins. I see every single minute he has played this season, last season, he is so lacking in confidence. I don't think he's fit, which hasn't helped him. Bring in Tammy Abraham.
I just don't think they'll pick a backup striker for Harry Kane. I don't think you need to. You want to keep your likes of Bellingham, Foden's, obviously Palmer's a 50-50 kind of thing. For me, anyway, I don't think you're then taking two of those players just because of the squad things, unless you only pick one left back. But then who else do you play? Like, you need a reserve left back anyway. You only pick three midfielders, but he's going to pick unless Adam Morton.
Unless you take a Livramento on the basis that he can play on either flank.
And Konsa could do a job at right back, and then he could take an extra forward.
A terrible job at right back.
But in a say that Reece James can't play 3 games in whatever, you could play. I mean, in the second group stage or the second group game or the third group game, remembering that technically you only have to finish third in the group. So, which they won't, but you could go that way and then you take 7 defenders if you so wish.
But one of the problems you have with Reece James is how fragile he is injury-wise.
Yeah, that's why I think you need to take a backup right back. Anyway, fun discussion. We'll find out soon.
And a lot will change between now and the end of the season as well in terms of injuries. Particularly these soft tissue injuries where come May time, if you pick up a hamstring strain, you're out 4-6 weeks. That's you pretty much done, I think, in terms of World Cup.
Yeah, they're not going to take any players who are not 100% fit. Well, they might take some players who are not 100% fit, but any hamstring or, remember those metatarsals with Rooney and Beckham back in the day? England have got some serious talent and they should be looking at going a long way in this World Cup. A minimum semi-final, if not further, beyond. But international football is garbage. But England haven't played anyone, talked about it before for a long time, so, of any note. They've been playing League One football opposition.
All right, cool. Interesting chat, James. And we will catch up soon.
Yeah, if anyone wants any more, as I said, always questions or things or points of view, just let us know in the comments or via Twitter or Instagram or however you watch or listen. Please do let us know and we'll try our best to answer them for you. But thanks for listening all and have a great weekend. Cheers.